enjoyed the last few streams. Basically, ever since we left Moonrise Tower, I've had a lot more fun because it's cool to explore this open world, run into a bunch of random encounters, combat, NPCs, little mini dungeons, and things like that. Where did they come from? Well, we lost because the sniper hits perfectly 100% and I can't hit at all. So that's why we lost the fight. So fuck this. You could cover the hole. It would be faster burning it. How do I... Huh? Huh? Fuck your turn-based mode. Get the fuck out of here. I said... Fuck your turn-based mode and get the fuck out of here. Are you guys coming? Someone died? They all died! Slow? Should we slow him? Their new spell, maybe slow him. Should I you know, by the way, how about this? I don't know what the fuck idiots are talking about with memes and shit. Oh, it's like, he's just like me. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't follow your dumb fucking memes. So take your meme and shove it up your fucking ass, because I have the ability to make an observation that's factually fucking based. Oh. Just because I'm DarkSydePhil doesn't mean I get to ignore fucking facts that the characters in this game are going through what I go through on a daily fucking basis. Shut the fuck up. Holy fucking shit, and relax.
Okay, that last one doesn't have anything to do with Baldur's Gate 3, but I was just looking for clips for this video and I happened upon that one, so I decided I wanted to share it. Shout out to Memology, by the way.
Neat, I like that. There are certain things about Baldur's Gate 3 I think are done really, really well. There's some things I think are not done so well, and as you know, I've been vocal in my criticism of those things over the course of the playthrough.
Yes, Phil, this is what's wrong with your criticisms. They all tend to fall under the category of user error. I mean, come on, how many platformer This Is How You Don't Plays have we watched where he constantly complains about the game dropping his inputs and won't even entertain the thought that he, you know, fucked it up? Now keep in mind, this is the same guy who plays a Dark Souls game and accuses the game of locking him in a corner, despite him being the one who put himself in that fucking corner. Now I'm also gonna throw DSP a bone and be fair here, some of the Dark Souls games do have some rather unique jank with wonky hitboxes and shit, but goddamn dude, come on, take some responsibility for yourself. Now when the guy starts to talk about his criticisms and shit, the two that you hear the most often are, how was I supposed to know that, and the game didn't tell me, dude. It seems to be one of those gamer things, but gamers typically press buttons and play with mechanics and things to see how they work and how they can use and abuse them, but yeah, that doesn't apply to Phil. And it's important to keep in mind that we are talking about DSP here. You know, this is the guy who laughs at somebody else because they couldn't finish the tutorial in Cuphead. Meanwhile, he's infamous for not knowing how to eat his rations or fire his fucking gun. Like, come on, man.
When we take a look at DSP's gaming criticism, and I use that term very, very loosely in this case, it's more than clear that his analysis often misses the mark. But this isn't due to the game's design, but his own gameplay shortcomings. He always says that he's not going to pull any punches, or says he's going to be completely honest before critiquing widely acclaimed games. But this highlights a deeper issue. There's a big disconnect between his perceived gaming expertise and his actual gaming performance. This conflict becomes painfully obvious when he faces challenges in game, and instead of acknowledging his lack of execution expertise, for lack of a better term, or a gap in knowledge, he instead shifts the blame into the game itself. And the kicker here is his painful lack of self-awareness, because instead of acknowledging that he has shortcomings, like all of us, he shifts the blame to the game itself, highlighting that it doesn't cater to his expectations, or worse yet, because it doesn't generate enough revenue in tips and contributions. This stance only undermines his validity as a game critic, and again, I'm using this term very loosely because this is Phil we're talking about. And what really boils my blood here is how DSP positions himself as a figure of authority with a criteria to determine what constitutes a gaming masterpiece. But the kicker here is that he struggles with the most basic game mechanics. But this isn't just about not knowing how to do certain things in the game or lack of understanding of in-game mechanics. This attitude highlights the much broader problem in his gaming criticism. This is about a fundamental misunderstanding about what games are supposed to be about. Gaming invites exploration, Phil, and surpassing challenges with sheer skill and persistence. Yet, whenever DSP criticizes the game, his commentary often reveals a reluctance to engage with these aspects, preferring instead to lay the blame elsewhere. His constant reference to a 15-year legacy and his vast gaming knowledge only adds to this irony, considering the simplicity of the challenges that often stump him. These challenges are things that gamers of all ages navigate fairly regularly, such as the aforementioned how to fire the fucking gun. Again, this dichotomy between DSP's self-perception and his actual gameplay not only discredits his critique, but also highlights a broader issue of authenticity in gaming commentary.
And the thing is, I have the right to do that. I have the right to criticize any game, and I will.
Oh my goodness, I don't mean to interrupt so much, but this really does bug me. What kind of point is he trying to make when he says he has the right to have an opinion? We all have that right. Is his next point going to be that water is wet? Now, there's two main issues here. The first being that we're also entitled to our opinion. For example, I hold the opinion that his hairline is trying to divorce his scalp. Shout out Team Divorce, by the way. The next issue is that, and this may shock you, so you may want to hold on to your butt, opinions can be fucking wrong and we're free to point that out. If you don't like it, then just keep your damn mouth shut.
Also, let's really not get into his whining and dining habits, because you know that when it comes to food, there's no shutting Phil up. Sound good?
I'm not going to pull punches. I'm not going to hold back when it comes to things that I feel about any particular game that I play. But in regards to Baldur's Gate 3, I am well aware that there is an audience of this game that absolutely love it and think it's like the best game ever made.
You mean to tell me a game that's received a lot of attention, broken Steam records, and won Game of the Year is loved by a large group of people? Well, this fucking shocks me. Also, what kind of point is he going to make? Is he going to follow this up with anything of value? Of course not. He's the guy. He's going to drunkenly slur his words and be a contrarian for the sake of it. Sound good? Sounds good to me. Also, a gentle reminder that he fucking hated this game before it even came out, and he's only playing it because it won Game of the Year, and he wants those hype bucks for Hogan's.
Alright, I beg to differ. I like the game. I'm not in love with it. I think that it has many shortcomings or things that could have been improved. I think a lot of the the situational dialogue is incredibly cringeworthy and written essentially for like immature people.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real blunt. You can go ahead and shut all the way up. I mean, when's the last time you've heard Phil talk about reading a book? Never, as far as I can recall. So who is he to judge the quality of any piece of literature, much less a fucking game? To put this into perspective, a professional critic will typically like and dislike things. From the things they do like, we can figure out what their style is, what they look for in whatever they critique. But for someone like Phil who doesn't like anything outside of sweaty man JPEGs and door dashing gin, what the hell could his style be? I honestly don't know, because he seems to hate, everything. And I don't mean in a cool and sexy way like me. Also, just wanted to point out how Phil's vocabulary peaks at cringeworthy and immature. What a charming little pigroach.
Remember when I said DSP has a gap between his perceived knowledge and his actual expertise in executing game mechanics? Well, this discomfort with romantic or sexual content in games adds an additional layer of contradiction to his critique. His awkward and often negative reactions to such content, which is much more notable in a man of his age and air quotes experience, suggest a much deeper issue with how he engages with mature themes in gaming. He's very insistent on distancing himself from these elements, frequently underlining his marital status as if to justify this discomfort. This does more than just highlight his personal preference. It sends a confusing message about maturity both in content consumption and in personal response to that content. It's either that or, I don't know, he just has battered housewife syndrome or something like that. And considering Khet's evolution, I guess, I'd say she's the one benefiting the most from DSP's lavish lifestyle. Regardless of all that, it's always fascinating to me to observe DSP in his natural habitat, trying to navigate these themes with such visible discomfort, given that games, like any form of media, explore a wide range of human experiences, and this also includes romance and sexuality. There's yet another contradiction here between his aversion to these themes and his critique of immature game dialogue, and this only underscores a disconnect. Is the maturity he calls for in games a reflection of his own views, or is it a shield to deflect from the content he personally finds challenging, I guess, to process?
And the way that various things are presented in the game is poor. You know, not really having a proper tutorial for 90% of the gameplay mechanics. So you need to either research or have someone tell you how to play the game.
I mentioned it before, but this falls into the category of user error. Phil legit plays games expecting them to explain every intricate detail of every possible thing. In general, games are designed to not only respect your intelligence, but also respect your ability to learn. As I said before, gamers are pretty notorious for pressing buttons and figuring shit out. A good example of his ineptitude is the soul matching mechanic in Nioh, whatever. You can read the explanation in-game, but of course Phil doesn't understand it. He complained that soul matching lowered the damage of his weapon even though he was presented with a before and after panel showing an empty familiarity bar. If I remember correctly, if you press select, Nioh will show an explanation for every term on the screen. Despite this, someone had to hold Phil's hand and show him how to decipher the difference between an empty bar and a full one. I honestly have no words for this shit. From the Baldur's Gate 3 gameplay I've seen, yes, the game expects you to experience the mechanics and learn from the experience. Did the game expect you to know that skeletons would revive? No, but it respects your ability to learn enough that you should now be educated on this mechanic and be prepared in future fights. Now, regardless of all of this, is it good enough for Phil? Of course not. He's given explanations, tutorials, glossaries, and either doesn't use or understand them. But I guess that's our fault because we don't make these things with robust, pig-style Americans in mind. Please understand.
There really isn't much to add here that the average detractor doesn't already know. I will, however, mirror the sentiment that most of DSP's struggle with games comes from his outright refusal to engage with mechanics. This could be via experimentation or by simply reading the damn tutorials. To me, all of this leads to one conclusion. It is that this man doesn't like video games at all. And as a longtime consumer of this type of content and this type of medium, I personally find this really bad, revolting even. This doesn't come from an elitist point of view either. This is just, someone who has been with gaming for most of his life beyond the entertainment value of interacting with the media. You know that one guy who always says he's a gamer, but then you find out he only plays the latest FIFA or Call of Duty, but acts as if he's the be-all end-all of video games in general? Well, that's kind of Phil, except this pigroach has managed to monetize it and earn a living off of it. His life is just a series of coincidences that eventually led up to him having a sustainable lifestyle off of something he doesn't enjoy at all. Which is something I think a lot of us can relate to, huh? Think about Mr. Magoo, but instead of a charming blind man, it's just Phil.
Yeah, you know, a lot of these ridiculous relationships that spring up out of nowhere, even though you've done absolutely nothing close or romantic with any of the cast, all of a sudden they want to jump your bones and sleep with you. That's pretty bad. It's pretty cringeworthy writing for, again, people who feel like they've never had a relationship before.
Oh my god, dude, I cannot believe how tight-ass this guy is with anything that even hints at romance or sex. General reminder that this is the same guy who wanted to motorboat Eva's tits in Metal Gear 3, and years later he's turned into this Victorian prude who sneers at the sight of ankles being uncovered. I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3 and I likely never will. It's just not my kind of game, dude. However, as I understand it, this is a diverse group of people from different walks of life who are on a quest to save their lives. The clock is ticking, time is running out, and they're not guaranteed another sunrise. For them, this night of romance could be the last thing they ever get. Who wouldn't indulge in that, given context? And again, he considers this bad? What does he consider good? Should these people who are on an urgent quest to save their lives take a break to have a picnic with you in the fucking park? Maybe they should meet your parents, perhaps even Netflix and chill in the Snort Fort before they even entertain the idea of looking at your pig pee-pee. This is why context is important, and his inability to understand it is infuriating at times.
Well, I did play Baldur's Gate 3, and I really enjoyed it. But regardless, the point still remains. You remember that long spiel I did about DSP's reluctance to engage with romantic content I did a few minutes ago? Well, I hate to say it, but I fucking called it.
And I have the right to criticize this kind of stuff. But there's people out there who disagree, and that's okay. I just wish that everyone out there understood that people can have different opinions of you, and that's okay. Like, if you like that stuff, I'm okay with it. As I've told you guys, I feel like this game, it's its own niche, right? Kind of like FromSoft games. There's people out there who absolutely hate FromSoft games because they feel that they're too difficult, right? But if you take the time to study and learn how these FromSoft games works and how all their mechanics are, they're masterpieces, right? But they're not for everybody.
I'm going to have to agree with Phil on these points. He does have a right to criticize. People do have differing opinions, and not every game is for everybody. However, the issue arises that Phil either can't articulate his criticism at an adult level, or he's just straight up fucking wrong. Also, how Shawn Michaels is it that the guy who commonly bans people from his own stream for having dissenting opinions wants other people to understand that people have differing opinions? He's always close. So fucking close to having just a shred of self-awareness and manages to fall over right at the finish line. Why are you like this, Phil? Are you a punishment from God for all of my wrongdoings? If I repent, will you stop being so you? I doubt it, but I can at least pretend like there's some meaning behind it all. Anyway, he says you should take the time to study these games. Aside from special people like me who meticulously refactor blueprints in Factorio, who in the actual fuck is studying video games? Dark Souls is, on a fundamental level, very basic. You have a roll, an attack, and a block. Everything else is, for the most part, intuitively building off of these base mechanics. From what I understand of playing other CRPGs and games in general, Baldur's Gate 3 is built the same way. Again, the game didn't expect you to know a mechanic existed before experiencing it, but the game expects you to learn by playing the fucking game.
Come on, man. Do you want to play the fucking game? And I kind of feel the same way about Baldur's Gate 3, yet Baldur's Gate 3 overwhelmingly won Game of the Year. Why?
Yeah, kind of nitpick, but I hate when people do this. They ask something simple that they could just look up in half a minute, but instead of investing any effort, they just guess and assume they're right. So I went to look this up. I found the site for the organization that hosts the Game of the Year stuff, and it seems to be a popularity contest. If I'm wrong, feel free to correct me. However, I've already invested more effort than Phil and have at least a shred of understanding compared to his sheer lack thereof.
Or maybe it's just because it's a good fucking game. But that's neither here nor there, to be honest.
We could sit here and argue about this till the cows come home. But in my opinion, it's because basically the game has some of this immature stuff. Like people, oh, wait a minute. Almost a high level, very complex, very nerdy RPG, D&D, but oh my god, you could sleep with bears? Yeah, and?
I'm sorry, but what the fuck did I just hear? Okay. Let me try to wrap my head around this. Phil thinks Baldur's Gate 3 won Game of the Year because it has immature stuff and you can fuck bears. I just can't. I want to can, but I just can't.
Oh boy, buckle up because this really grinds my gear and it's going to be a long rant. DSP's reduction of complex game narratives and character interactions to mere immature stuff, particularly in the context of Baldur's Gate 3, misses the essence of RPGs and their ability to simulate intricate human, or well in this case humanoid, experiences. His constant fixation on the option for a character to engage romantically with a shape-shifted druid, this only serves to point out a surface-level engagement with the game's content, ignoring the layers of relationship-building, choice, and consequence that surround that decision. The critical element here isn't the act of romance itself, and this is whether it's engaging with a character who can shapeshift into a bear, or any other fantastical scenario, which Baldur's Gate 3 has a lot of. This is more about the journey leading to these moments, the dialogues, the shared battles, the moral decisions, and the mutual support that culminate in a bond between characters. Not that DSP would know anything about that. These interactions aren't frivolous at all, Dave. They're a testament to the game's depth, allowing players to explore relationships and consequences within a fantasy setting. What's more, the ability to engage in these relationships, whether they're platonic or romantic, mirrors the complexities of real-life interactions. Again, not that you know anything about that, Phil. These decisions challenge players to consider their choices and their impacts on the game's world and its inhabitants. Dismissing these elements as immature not only undermines the game developers' efforts to create a rich, immersive world, but it also reveals a lack of appreciation for the nuances of storytelling in modern gaming, which Phil says he's a fan of somehow. His comments, with focus on sensational aspects without regard for context, overlook the artistry and player agency that RPGs offer. This is a reminder that understanding and appreciating the depth of video games requires moving beyond these first impressions to engage with the narrative, the characters, and the world they inhabit fully. And I really don't mean to suck off Baldur's Gate here, because this applies to gaming in general, well, mostly to RPGs, but such depth and immersion in gaming narratives offer opportunities for meaningful exploration of themes, relationships, and personal growth, far beyond the simplistic critique of, again, immature stuff. In this light, this specific commentary of DSP isn't just about missing the point, it's about a broader failure to recognize the potential of video games as a medium for storytelling and player engagement. The richness of games like Baldur's Gate 3 lies in their ability to weave complex narratives that invite players to explore, interact, and grow with the characters. This is a concept that's obviously foreign to DSP, giving his surface level dismissals.
To me, it's like, what does that matter, right? To me, my focus, honestly, my favorite part of this game is the incredible amount of narrative and content in it. Like some people have said, this game kind of feels like almost the spiritual successor to Witcher 3, where everything you run into is kind of important and meaningful. Now, you can skip a lot of it and it won't really affect the overall course of the game, but if you take your time to do every little piece of stuff you discover, it actually feels very rich and like a very complex world. I completely agree. I'm happy that in the way that I've been playing Baldur's Gate 3, that I've been taking my time to do all the content I run into, and I haven't really skipped anything, right? I mean, that's why I'm 70 some hours in and we're still in Act 2.
I'm not gonna lie, it's hilarious that he sounds like he's more drunk than me trying to record this shit. Anyway, what he seems to like about the game is that it's a narrative game and has a rich world. Great, I would agree. Coming from the dying husk of Elden Ring's open world to something like Baldur's Gate 3, I'd most likely see it as a breath of fresh air too. However, how exactly can you like the narrative and the world when you hate how everyone in it acts and behaves? Now, I'm going to be that guy for just a second and mention Tales of Arise. It was my first Tales of game that I ever played, and I hated that game. Why? Because the people in it behaved in such an alien manner. I know these aren't humans on Earth, but they acted in a way that I just couldn't imagine people behaving. It was awkward and took me out of the experience. Contrast this to Baldur's Gate 3. These characters were deliberately written to interact with each other in a believable manner. You could say, that interaction was a bit odd, but it's obvious that Larian put a lot of effort and attention into their interactions. Lastly, you're still in Act 2 because you barely played the damn game. I know it's a long game, but how far are you getting when you're constantly pausing to empty your gin bladder, read super chats, and complain about everything? I see what you're doing. You need to stop it.
Stop it. Get some help.
So, I love that about the game. But why is it that every time you hear someone talk about Baldur's Gate 3, you hear about who is your waifu or husbando in the game, and how many bears did you bang, and you know what I'm saying? It's stupid. Why is the discourse so dumb and immature when the game has so much more than that to offer? I don't know.
I have to ask, who are you hearing that from? The past 15 years of your life have been more documented than a porn star. We know you have no friends. We know you don't talk to anyone outside of your super secret mod Discord. We know you don't actually go out and do anything. So, who are you hearing this from? This is the equivalent of shaping your worldview off of 4chan and Twitter shitposts. Even if this is all you're hearing about the game, who the fuck cares? People like a lot of different aspects of a lot of different things. I played Final Fantasy XIV for close to 10 years. If you ask people what they like about the game, you'll get a lot of answers like raiding, crafting, or just making friends. Should I base my view of the game based on schizo shitposts? Absolutely not. I can keep these things in mind, but at the end of the day, the only opinion that matters is mine. That's why my opinion is correct and Final Fantasy XIV is a bad game. I will die on this hill and you won't change my mind. Fuck off.
It's fun with friends though. Please come back, Felonious, we miss you.
No, but I'm going to make another comparison. And I challenge you on this one to disprove it. There's a game coming out in a month or two called Stellar Blade. Okay? You know it. It's that action game where it's a lot of flashy combat and a lot of... Oh, wait, no one knows that. All you know is that the main character is this anime chick, right? And if you actually have been listening recently in the last week or two, all the PR about the game is about the main character and how she looks.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real blunt about this. Who the fuck cares about the PR behind the game? I'm not playing PR, I'm playing a game. If the PR is enough to get me interested in the game, either because I find it genuinely interesting or I'm curious enough to investigate just what the hell I just saw, then the PR did a good job. All the talk I saw surrounding Baldur's Gate 3 was focused on banging bears or Shadowheart. So what? It got me to look into the game. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough to get me to buy the game, but that's really beside the point. I'm not sure if Phil understands this, but people like looking at attractive things. The Fable remake is getting a lot of negative attention lately because it just, well, it looks bad. To put this into better context, no one wants to play a game where the protag looks like Phil. Not even Phil. Stellar Blade looks good. It even has an attractive protag. It was enough to make me look into it and, oh shit, look at that. The gameplay is pretty fire too. I just wish it wasn't a PS5 exclusive. However, and don't forget, this is a 41-year-old man who's upset at any semblance of romance or sexual interest in games who got popular over degrading women. The joke snorts itself.
No exaggeration, even the game developers have come out and admitted, they said, yes, we based that character on a Korean model, and yes, we actually spent arduous hours modeling her ass cheeks so that she would look the most attractive. It's like, yes, because you're selling your game on the sexual content of the main character. You're not selling your game on the game.
To be clear about this, in multiple interviews, the developer, Kim, mentions that while the face is unique, the body was modeled after an actual Korean model, Shin Jae-yoon. Kim also mentions that they put special attention on the character's back and rear since that's what faces the camera. I hate to bring up that MMO meme, but if I'm going to be looking at something for 60 hours, I want it to be visually appealing. I don't quite see the issue here. Should they have designed their female protag with Phil's concave Hank Hill ass and beer gut in mind? Appearances matter. Presentation matters too. Why is he trying to fight this? This is why low tier god told you to work on your sexy, because you look like a drunken mess with the hairline of a Saiyan prince. You look kinda gross, dude. Also, I can't find a source of Kim selling the game on the sexual content of the main character. Seems like he's just mad that the game is featuring an attractive protag instead of his wife who looks like a fat Chinese boy.
I mean, it was fine when Yoko Taro built 2B to be as attractive as possible in that one Nier game, going as far as to make her permanently fight in stiletto boots and a one-piece skin-tight leotard, while unapologetically and quite hilariously saying he just likes to look at pretty women. Given Nier's success, why would Stellar Blade be problematic now? I'm sure it'll be at worst a generic action game and at best a pretty crazy action hack and slash, something akin to Devil May Cry even. However, call me Nostradamus, but I'm sure none of this will have anything to do with how Eve looks.
If Stellar Blade had a main character that was a regular dude with two swords, no one would give two shits about this game.
Huh, that's weird. I remember a game coming out about 20 years ago featuring a dude in a trench coat. He only had one sword, and he was beating up demons in a castle. Turned into quite the franchise. We'll just pretend like that never happened though.
Though, to be fair, Dante and Virgil are kinda hot, not gonna lie. Nero and V can fuck off though.
It would probably have no height. It would just be another game amongst a million of these kind of games that no one really cares about. But whenever you make a Bayonetta, or you make a Stellar Blade, or you do that, all of a sudden, now everyone talks about it. Why? Because of the sexual content in the game. Period. So, go ahead and try to tell me that the reason people didn't talk about Baldur's Gate 3 as much as they did was the sexual content. I dare you to lie.
To make an argument and, in your conclusion, presuppose that all rebuttals and dissenting statements are lies is, well, I'm sure there's a term for it, but I'm just gonna call it being a jackass. People talked about Baldur's Gate 3 because they enjoyed Baldur's Gate 3. I assume the people who liked the game and talked about the game were talking about things they liked about the game. Who cares what aspect of the game they liked so long as they liked the game? And considering it won Game of the Year, we can agree that a lot of people like the game. Also, why are you talking so much shit about a game you're currently playing and want people to give you money for? Sounds counterproductive, Desu. Stellar Blade, at least to me, is getting a lot of attention because it looks flashy. And nowadays, we get a lot of games that just don't look great. Elden Ring looked dull and gray. Baldur's Gate 3 looked colorful and full of narrative. Hogwarts Legacy looked like, well, Harry Potter. I don't know why he's giving Stellar Blade so much shit for having an attractive character when people are blowing wads over Shadowheart and shipping Randy and Melina so much. If there's an attractive character, people are going to talk about it, and maybe he's just bitter that no one talks about him this much, or in a positive light.
Because that's the truth. Yes, the game is outstanding. Yes, it has a lot of great content. Yes, it's complex and have D&D elements, and that's a unique thing. But the reason people talked about it was the sexual content. Deal with it. Okay, continuing on. That's my opinion, not the truth. All right, and again, you have the right to disagree with me if that's what you feel. But what was the discourse about this game and Stellar Blade now? Just look at the discourse. Wow, look at that amazing combo. Look at that really cool combat engine. Literally no one. Literally no one. It's just a bunch of people mouth drooling over the main character. That's modern gaming at this point, I guess, right? And the thing is, it's not just games. This has happened in every entertainment industry. An entire movie where the only reason people saw the movie was because of the title actor or actress, correct?
I had to let this play on a bit to let Phil set some context here. I will also warn you that I am also about to drag on for a bit. So, while writing this part, I went to check out what people are saying about Stellar Blade. I went to check Reddit, and it's a bit hard to grasp because of the infinite scrolling, but after scrolling the front page of the Stellar Blade Reddit, I found a grand total of 3 threads about her ass, out of dozens.
Yeah, regardless of that, I do kind of feel that Phil gets all of his news and insights exclusively from Twitter. I actually dove into Musk's festering cesspool of a social media platform, and lo and behold, most of the comments on Stellar Blade are in fact focused around or reference Eve's appearance. This is a shit-flinging contest of the highest caliber, as is expected from anything that goes on in that platform. Outside of Twitter is a different story, however.
A quick search gives a bunch of articles writing about the controversy over her appearance, developer interviews, gameplay discussions, content, and so on. So we can already see Phil is fucking wrong and just projecting his opinions as facts. He then goes on to say this is just modern gaming, which doesn't seem to align with anyone paying attention. Modern gaming is, from what I see on a regular basis, people getting upset over predatory MTX, people who want less censorship, and the obligatory my game good, your game bad shitposts. He wants to push this narrative that modern gaming is all about sex appeal, and that seems to be the total opposite. I'm pretty sure games like Genshin Impact are drawing more attention than The Last of Us 2 because their characters don't look like refrigerators wearing lingerie. People want to look at attractive things. This isn't a bad thing. This is why they didn't body scan Phil to come up with a design for Kratos. Additionally, he says this has happened in every entertainment industry, and I just couldn't disagree more. They've always tried to cast attractive people, or at least people who look like they can fit into the role, at least for movies. This is why Ripley isn't crippled and obese. This is why Batman, at least for the most part, looks like he can actually pull off these moves. This is why it's so jarring and takes you out of the experience to see an anorexic teenage girl take on a bodybuilder without breaking a sweat. People have to look like they can play the part while also not offending your eyes. Again, this just seems like he's projecting his bitterness. Lastly, I want to see what examples he can provide for an entire movie where people only saw it because of the actor or the actress. I can think of plenty, but they're all porn.
This has happened countless times. But it's okay to acknowledge it and admit it instead of trying to pretend like the reason that you like something is something that's not there. Right? Instead of admitting that yes, we all just kind of have a weakness for this thing, instead we're going to try to justify it and pretend like it's this or this or this or this or this. Well, here's the thing. Again, then what I want you to do is I want you to take that element out of it. I want you to take all the sexual content out of Baldur's Gate 3. I want you to take it all out of Stellar Blade and tell me that you would like the game as much. Because you'd be lying to yourself.
I don't understand how someone who lies not only to himself but also his pittance of a fan base on a daily basis is telling me that I'm lying to myself about the things I like. Yes, Phil, if the pro tag of Stellar Blade was an average girl, I would more than likely still be interested in the game. Again, the point isn't that she's hot, it's that she's not offensive to the eyes. I played all the Devil May Cry games, and I did not get into the series because of how badly I wanted Dante to bend me over. I got into the games because I looked cool as shit. Likewise, Baldur's Gate 3 would still be a great game without the romance, just like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, except Inquisition because that game was shit, would both be good games without the romance, they just have less content. He doesn't seem to understand that a single element can be beneficial to the game without being the entirety of the game. He just makes these stupid, uninformed, surface-level observations and runs with it as if he's an expert on the subject. No, Phil, people aren't going to blow $70 on a game just because the pro tag looks nice. They're blowing $70 on a game because it looks interesting enough for the money and the pro tag looks nice. I'm sorry, but I don't want to play an action game where your wife is the pro tag. At that point, I'd most likely pay you $70 just to get that shit out of my face.
This can also work the other way around. Remember back when Subnautica came out to the fanfare of the survival crafting game crowd? Well, this game was praised for its beautiful underwater environments, its engaging narrative, and for the crippling fear it elicited on people with thalassophobia. Like me. Regardless of that, a while later, the devs revealed what the pro tag looked like, and, well, I guess this didn't sit well with the Twitter crowd, as they were parroting memes and shit-flinging over the character's ethnicity and appearance. And I'm not saying we have to listen to what these rabid people say or do, but they do, in a way, reflect some of the opinions towards any piece of media. However, in spite of this, the first Subnautica still stands as a shining example of an interesting concept and world, along with survival gameplay done right, regardless of the appearance of its characters.
It's true. I'm sorry. I'm enjoying the games on face value without that content, because that's not what I'm looking for in video games. My opinion on that stuff is different than you, and that's fine. But I just find it absolutely hilarious that when I legitimately criticize something, like when I say, my God, the dialogue of Baldur's Gate 3 when it comes to the relationships and this kind of romance is so cringy. It's so not close to what any human would actually say. It's as if the writers don't even know what people talk like when it comes to romance. Yeah, it's true. And that's a legit criticism of the game.
No, that's a criticism. Not a legit one and not a good one. Can you explain how it's cringy or why? No, you can't, because you have the articulation of a small child who's been beaten with a stick. I don't mean to get this personal, but who the hell are you to even offer this kind of criticism? You say they wrote these interactions in a way that no human would say, but you don't actually talk to anyone. You have no real life friends. You don't even have online friends. You don't talk to anyone in a genuine manner except your wife when she's not replaying Skyrim or working her dead-end part-time job. Likewise, you're not exactly a paragon of romance, even ignoring your previously mentioned black hole of a social life. You pulled one teeny bopper because she was already a fan and landed in your YouTube DMs, and you got the next because she's a cheater. Not exactly winning any awards here, bro. I'm an antisocial person who hates everyone outside of my house, and I've had more relationships in the last 3 years than he's had in the last 15. Take that however you want. Also, don't pretend like you like games. You bitch and whine about literally everything.
I'm not saying the game's bad, but I have a right to say that. And then people get all uppity about it. Ooh, well, too fucking bad. Too bad. Just because you don't like the fact that someone is exposing something doesn't mean it's not true. That's a hard fact of life. As you get older, you realize stuff like this, right? Anyway. So anyway, Eternal Napalm says, you don't think the combat and bosses in Stellar Blade look cool? Again, I didn't say that. What I'm saying is, who's talking about that? Literally no one. All you got to do is go look at the trends on social media and things. No one cares. The only people buying that game, okay, not the only people. A lot of people buying that game will be buying it solely on the fact of the main character's attractiveness. That's it. That's it. And it's time to admit this. As a society, this is where we're going. People fall for this shit. It's a silly trap that people fall for all the time. I mean, hell, let's be honest. The Tomb Raider games, back in the day, they weren't great. Run around, auto-aim, shoot wildly at a bunch of enemies, and then terrible platforming that was incredibly frustrating.
People like Dave who voice opinions like this are dangerous. Not because their opinions are necessarily true, but because they have dents that will inevitably believe anything their pigroach overlord says. People with a platform of this size can, in a way, mold the reality of their audience and effectively make things seem legit by a constant hammering and repetition of any given opinion. When he says shit like, we have to admit this as a society, this is where we're going, no, we're not, Phil. This is what gets parroted on Twitter nonstop. Trust me, I've been there and seen the discussions with my own eyes. Regrettably so. This is not where society is going. Well, hopefully not. But this is where Twitter is going, probably. Maybe you should take a long, hard look at yourself and reflect on whether your opinions are actually yours or simply born out of confirmation bias from what you see on Twitter.
I'm gonna be real here. I don't know how you can live long enough for your age to start with a 4 and not develop a sense of self-awareness, but here we are. Again, who the hell cares about social media trends? I sure as hell don't, and I don't buy products, much less games, based on the hype. I buy things because I find them interesting or I see their value. I didn't buy RimWorld because it was trending. I saw a video on YouTube of someone playing it and it seemed pretty fucking cool. I checked out the Steam page and got even more interested. Now I have over 2,000 hours on that game because it's just that fucking good. Social media didn't play a part in this outside of informing me that the game existed. Why does this man-child put so much importance on what people are saying? He also has this weird impression of the average person that they're just slaves to desire who throw their money at anything borderline attractive. That's not how that works. Yes, we know that sex sells. People have sexual urges and desires, but you can't just put a supermodel on the cover of any slop and expect it to be successful. It has to have substance behind it. It has to have substance. People don't buy candy bars because of the wrapper. They buy it for the candy. The wrapper is just a bonus. Why can't he fucking understand this? Anyway, I'm tired of responding to this dumb shit. I hope you all enjoyed our rant, and I hope you all enjoyed the video. Okay, thanks, bye.